morning and good evening, everyone. We are live now with Otis for the Indic Book Club Writers Open House. And you know the drill. You send in a piece of writing that you want feedback on, about 800 words in length to Otis using certain guidelines, double spaced, Times New Roman font size 12, and you send it as a PDF document. Otis will review it and send in, mark up his feedback and send it back to you via email. And then in this session on Sunday, he'll go over that piece, give you feedback specific as well as share good practices on writing as well as reviewing. And since this session is held on Sundays, please make sure that you send your feedback as early in the week as possible, certainly no later than Friday. If you do send it Friday or later, then chances are he will not be able to take a look at it, so it will get moved on out to the next week. And before we get started, one other point of order. Uh, from the 14th of March, that is next Sunday, the time will change in the US to account for daylight savings, which means we will also prepone this session by 30 minutes. So it will start at 8:30 p.m. India time, 8:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Sundays India time. It will be 8 a.m. in 8 a.m. Pacific in the US. I will make the change to the webinar after this session ends. And if you have very, very strong opinions on why it should change or not change, please let me know via the chat function. And Otis, I will turn this over to you now.
Okay, thank you. Great. Hello, everyone. This week I got 3 reviews of books, and so I think we'll have a little concentration on reviews. And Madhavi, I see here, I have 2 other reviews, and I'm not sure, Mayur, and then
We do have, off the top of my head, I can see 2 or 3 new faces. So there is Sabrish, there is Vidyanath Jha, and there is one person with the name Galaxy A70. If you don't mind, could you, unmute yourself and share your video and maybe say a couple of words if about yourselves, and if you have sent any writing sample.
Hi, good evening to everyone. My name is Sabarish, and I'm currently pursuing my PhD at JNU. And it was only today that I came back to Chennai, and I was happy to receive the book. And I will be soon working on the review part, and I will get back to this very soon. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you,
all right.
Sabrish. So,
Nice to meet you, Sabari.
Hi, nice to meet you, Otis.
Sabrish, one of the objectives is also to improve the quality of reviews that people write. And as you know, as part of the Indic Book Club 1000 Reviewers Club, we have been sending out lots and lots of books and inviting people who get this book to read and write a review of those books. And one of the aims of this series with Otis is also to improve the reviewing quality or the review quality of books. And to that end, we also invite you to send review pieces, again, 750, 800 words in length. Otis has covered some of the do's and don'ts and general, good practices of reviewing, as well as I think at least about 3 or 4 book reviews he has critiqued in previous sessions. So thank you, and we look
Thank you very
forward to
much.
your review.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And maybe Galaxy
Hi.
A70 can.
Hey everyone. Sorry, I don't know why Zoom picked up my device name rather than my name. This is Ujjwala Singhania, and I shared my review, and I got Otis's
great.
feedback as well on this one. So I'm fairly new to reviewing books. Like so far in the past, I've written just few sentences, a paragraph uh, on Goodreads. for few books, but this time around, I've because of that Indic book club's initiative, I was thinking about writing reviews more seriously. So I just want to understand the nuances that I should keep in mind while writing reviews so that it is more meaningful.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're here. I actually did want to start with your piece, so lucky you. And then Abhinav, there's be something interesting we should talk about, or maybe we can talk about with the group poll. You can decide. But to begin thinking about how you cultivate outlets for the reviews that you're writing. So to identify places where the reviews might be sent and to understand the places a little bit, because that's the first audience, right? You write a review, material, this content, and then you basically want an outlet, and you're choosing an outlet because they then have a certain audience too. And so they become a filter for that review. And it would be probably a positive idea for you think about, rather than just because you can work on it collectively, right? Have a large group, work collectively to develop a list of outlets and to understand sort of what they like and what they don't like in terms of their publishing is. So then you're providing that too. What you have right now, a group, that's writing reviews, which is a very, very powerful thing. Now there's some other parts of that mechanism that you want to think about that it really doesn't much time to do, but that increases your effectiveness, of course.
Right, we should definitely.
Yeah, because it is one of the questions I have is when I review, I'm wondering what kind of is it going to, what we're projecting for, as an outlet for this review. It doesn't really matter in a sense if it's just going to be on Amazon. Amazon, bad, that's fine. I think you do, and so it's just me sort of my analysis is that, if we just put it on Amazon, then we're just somebody essentially. But if we put it into this journal, then we've been vetted in a sense, and we rise in our stature in a way. It's great
That's
to
true.
get that review into a journal, and then you can reference that journal in the Amazon review, because probably more people finally read the Amazon reviews. But basically now you're increasing the stature of your Amazon review. Or you can even look to do something in the middle, something that's not sort of editorially selective. And you can go to something like Medium, for example,
Correct.
which is essentially self-publishing. And I do that, right? I publish things. It takes too long, depending on material, to go through reviews or journals or anything like that. So I just publish it on Medium, and then I take that Medium piece and I put it into social media. So all I'm doing is picking just a small amount. I mean, whatever, but I'm upticking a little bit the values, and I'm also archiving it, which I like. So
absolutely. So yes, let's talk about that for sure, because Amazon and Goodreads is obviously one avenue, but Indic Academy also has a portal where we publish reviews, and they are curated in the sense that if they meet a certain standard and quality of writing and a certain level, then they are published on it, and that is Indic Today. If people are not aware of it, so they can look up Indic Today and they can see what kinds of reviews are published. Obviously, there are then newspapers, magazines, and other news portals where that also publish reviews, but that depends on if you're able to convince an editor there to publish your piece and all. And certainly, putting it up on your blog, or even for that matter on Medium or Substack, is important because it provides for an archive of all your reviews. So I have been doing that on my blog, putting up all my reviews. So, more than 200 of them. So it serves not only archival purposes, but also provides a way for me to go back and see how good or bad my reviews were, 5 years back, what I did, what I wrote well or not. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's very embarrassing at times to go back and take a look at those reviews. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe because this publishing, obviously online, you can have your own magazine. You can have your own Medium. You can develop your own indie magazine. All of it is possible now. It's really incredible. I think it's a great opportunity. Okay.
It is, yes.
Great. Well, let's look at excuse me. Let's look at this piece. So the author Ujwala, you can see this, right? And about some of the secret history of the end of an empire by Alex Tunzelman. And okay, so this review, and actually all of these reviews, so it kind of, these two things go hand in hand. We were talking about where a review might go, and where the review might go. So is sort of defining the audience a little bit. And defining the audience for your review is probably the most important thing for you to do at first. As you begin, obviously you read the book, and then you think to yourself, you're writing a review, which is basically meant to kind of bridge to an audience that either may or not read this book. Does that sound? I wish some of you would put on your video. I feel like I'm talking to a group of blank screens. I feel lonely. Thank you so much. That's a picture of the floor. Thank you. I appreciate you. And now I feel like I have company, at least. I'm not just, I usually do, I just talk so about all these things. Okay, so we want to think about the audience. We want to think about, they are people that are already defined. It's not just the world at large. It's people who are going to be interested in this book. So that already very much curtails it, right? There's a piece of genre fiction. We're going to see that a little bit later. It's someone who reads genre. It's someone here that seems, I'm going to guess that this is nonfiction.
That's right. Yes.
Is it that has a thesis statement of some kind?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
So maybe I'll just wait on that for a second. So anyway, it's nonfiction, it's history, it's about a particular issue, the end of an empire, right? So all of these are sort of narrowing our focus. And not going to be billions of people reading this, only going to be people reading this book who are interested in reading 1, fiction, 2, history, and 3, about this particular topic of the end of an empire, which I'm imagining India, or is it Great Britain?
Great Britain.
I
yep.
think okay,
so it's on partition, and basically the end of an empire would refer to Great Britain.
So the argument in a sense is then the partition of India, and you'll forgive my history, I have enough problems with my own history in the US, but India is somehow a demarcation of the end of the British era. Is that the argument that's being made?
That's right.
Okay,
So it focuses on like after during World War II, what happens in Great Britain, how they and what was unfolding in India, and how they took the decision to pull out of India, and whatever followed after that.
And it seems to concentrate sort of on the personal history of Mountbatten and Lady Mountbatten, and you'll forgive me if I'm mispronouncing, so I hope Jawahar.
That is right. Yes.
So in a sense, it's kind of a more personal, I mean, that's in a sense saying the secret history is there basically, it's somewhat perhaps that they're going to get into the personal acts of these major players in this history in order to make the comments, basically to say that, let's say that the end of the empire was more the result of sort of personalities interact with each other and maybe the way we thought of it. Does that sound like this?
No, it was more like at the end of an empire was the backdrop. Okay, and how these three people were like instrumental in what happened in India.
Okay, I get it. So I'm glad. So in this conversation, this is what you'll want to lead with. So this is your lead. Basically, what is at the center of this book? Basically, so you have casting around, they already maybe have an interest. So they've seen the title, right? Indian Summer, The Secret End of an Empire. So there are various words in that title that are meant to, obviously, this is why we design titles, to get a reader interested in what the book is going to be about. Basically suggest something to them. They want secrets. This is always the case, actually, with book. We want to know kind of secrets. So that's already engaged them to a certain, and now you want to inform them more so what the book is actually going to be about in a sort of more expansive sense. That means that you're going to take a look at the thesis. What is the argument that it's making? Essentially, that would be my suggestion, because a book of nonfiction primarily is making an argument, and generally an explicit argument that's going to be stated somewhere in the book, usually right at the beginning. Make an argument, and then they basically write out all the material that they have to support that argument, and then they conclude in a sense. Does that sound a little bit like how the book is designed?
Yes, in a sense, yes, that's correct.
Right. So it's not always done it's not always done absolutely formulaic, although I've been taught to do that work formulaically. It doesn't necessarily appear that there's going to be an introduction. Usually it will contextualize the issue. It'll end with the thesis of, and you can isolate these things. When we're just reading it for fun, we don't really do that. We read it and we're like, oh, I hate this. Oh, it's fun. We just do all those things. But when we want to write the review, we want to write the essence of the book in a short time, we try and reduce that, and we want to present that probably front. Then in this review, so the way this begins is that this is a nice thing for you. You're not being critical yet, right? But everyone else does not know this yet, but I do, because I've read the entire review. That really you're basically warming up to black. You're like, you're right. It makes for an enjoyable reading, even if you don't agree with how the various figures are portrayed and the accolades and portion. And then you have this really, what I consider a better and more engaging section, this long paragraph where you just this book apart, right? So I'm going to turn to the beginning. That should come out right away. Okay, so that should be, so after you say what this book is about, you basically should say what the problems are. Because if you see how that's designed, you basically are saying your audience are people who either will or won't, you know, basically who are already say they're already interested in this book. And then you want to, they're interested, right? It's piqued their interest, this subject, this secret history, end of an empire. They have, oh my God, what's happened to Great Britain, they ask, right? And then so it's interesting to them. And then what you want to do is you want to say, that's what it's about. And this is basically the thesis. And then you basically say, you don't want to read this book. That seems what you're saying.
So shouldn't it starts with the good stuff and then go into the issues, rather than like if we have already talked about the issues, would anyone like to read about the good parts or bits and pieces about it?
Okay, so in my understanding of reading is, so my understanding of reading is kind of a little bit different than most people's, or the way we kind of learn sort of to read. The way we learn to read is we go to school and we're basically forced to read from the beginning to the end. Okay. The way we read in the real world, we start reading, we read, right? I mean, maybe the thing at all, but maybe we see the title. So we see Indian Summer, Secret History, End of an Empire. Okay, I'm tempted to use courage, I'll refrain, but I don't care. I don't read anymore. I read the title and I don't read anymore because I'm interested in others. Oh, I read the title, I am interested in that. Then I read the first graph. If one interests me, then I read on. If it doesn't interest me, I discard it. You tell me, and I'm like, that thesis statement is garbage. I stop reading, right? So I actually only read as much as I need to everything out front as quickly as possible, because even the people who read just the title, we want them to make a decision based on what we're trying to do something. Basically, we'll worry about what you're trying to say in a minute, whether it's about agreement or a question of perspective or a question of research. I mean, these are different things, right? But we need to basically get everything on as quickly as possible. We're not really going to be finding readers who simply want to spend some time with our work. We are really finding readers who want to take something away from our work, and they're going to take that as quickly as possible and then probably on to the next. Does that make a little sense? I mean, I'm basically saying we don't have the luxury of people are just, oh, I'm relaxed with a review today, and you know, oh, this is nice. Oh, now she's telling me that I should read it. You know, we don't want to play. I mean, I know you're not playing a trick. I know you're thinking a certain way, but I'm going to suggest that we are incisive and exact. We want probably even in our first paragraph to bait our thesis. So what we're proposing, which is the book is about this, reading about the history of these major players can be at times extremely entertaining. The author gets information from personal letters and Today, the analysis comes from a colonial perspective, for example, and is slanted towards the presumption of Anglo exceptionalism. I don't know, like as a possibility. Put that in the first paragraph, so the one who's going to be they're going to read that and oh, I see, this history interesting enough, but finally it's from a very perspective. I don't want to waste my time reading something that comes from a slanted perspective. I'd rather read something that's accurate. Or maybe they say to themselves, oh my God, I love slanted perspectives. I'm going to definitely read this book. The whole sense. So get it out there right away. Then that, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying, yeah, that is helpful. That makes sense.
Yeah. What you have in then, so what you've now produced in that first paragraph, you basically have said, this is the thesis. You said that this is, entertain, the personal lives of these major figures. And for those of us who, have been interested in your figures for much of our lives, we enjoy reading those personal details that are coming from letters and da 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 da. For the great law is both in the larger analysis and the perspective, right? So now it has three things. It tells me the thesis, it tells me positive, and it tells me what's negative. That sets design for the rest of the piece. So now the reader, as they move into the rest of, they might not read this. They probably won't, honestly. Just read that. They'll find out whether you slammed it, whether you're suggesting read it, and make a decision based on that. Basically, they're going to make a decision. They think about you, presentation, what you finally said, and they probably aren't read your evidence, which is follow with. Does that make sense? But if they do, then we follow with the evidence. So we have three things up: the thesis, what's good and what's bad. Then we have paragraphs. The thesis again will drive into that thesis in a more active way, probably. We'll write about those personal details you enjoyed. You might include a couple of Nehru only had, always put 3 sugars tea, or something. You're like, oh, always wanted to know that. And then you're going to go into thing that's that's really pragmatic, which you have at the end, which is that it's essentially a colonial perspective, perhaps, and I would not pull any punches. You go, right? The research is suspect, the letter entertaining and amusing. The political analysis is slanted and da 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 da, right? And then basically have maybe 2 or 3 points about why the takeaway from this book, or maybe even saying that, maybe you're saying the takeaway, the thesis is okay. Maybe the thesis that this marks the end of an empire, that's okay. But to get to that thesis is disturbingly biased, right? Maybe that's what, I don't really know. Whatever it is that you're going to say, definitely, and then you thank you. Thank you for reading my review. But you want to decide, you want to come down one side or the other, and you're going to come down one side or the other. You're totally straightforward and honest, and imagine that someone only reads that, but really that becomes a little mini, like an abstract, right? It becomes an abstract summary. The larger document will follow, and you
Okay.
have something. I think you have something important to say. So it's a question to just organize material. You've read the book, you've done the work. Now you just have to organize basically your ideas about the book into these. Essentially, it's a 1, 2, 3 punch, right? So the thesis, the primary thesis, the positive things, and then really the things which are going to be we hope, damaging. No one ever reads this book. Nah, that's a joke. No, but we want to get our point of view. I mean, you have a point of view you want to express, so we really want to set that up and express it well.
All right, got it.
Yeah.
That is helpful.
And I think it's great. I see this review again, because honestly, what you're saying in the book, it actually, I'm a great audience in a sense, because I do read those details, but I also really want this analysis that the perspective is slanted. And I think that is an important, I think that's really important to make, rather than, book up there and be like, okay, this is somehow different because this guy read a couple letters. No, he read a couple letters and he put in these details, but his analysis, where he comes from finally, is a perspective that has a bias, I think is what you're finally saying.
Yes, absolutely.
That's important to make about, because otherwise the book, let's say you don't write this review, then this book goes out unchallenged, because the thing is, perspective is that no one really notices it because it's so encompassing, right? A biased person is all encompassing. So what they do is they get involved, they want to read the secrets, they actually get propagandized essentially by the bias, which they don't notice. So they go for one thing, these, literally in detail about the sugar, and then but what is it? There's like the saying, bathwater, you get the baby, but then you also get the water of bias. Okay, so I went a little off with that metaphor. So great. Any questions on it?
No, I'm you have given me some ideas, and I'm just happy that I've shared the negative review, because this is more helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great to write, and I hope you write it and get it out there, to a large audience.
Sure, will do. Thanks, Otis.
Sure, of course. Madhav.
Hi, am I audible?
Hey.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Madhavi.
Hi, hi,
I
Otis.
was waving. We know each other, don't we?
We do.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Okay, Madhavi. A little bit about you, and maybe Madhavi, you've been here before. Let me ask you, maybe like, who do you think is going to be for this review?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Your voice is breaking.
Tell us a little bit about this review. Give us a little rundown, and then if you could identify who the audience will be for this review.
Oh, okay. This book by Matthew Riley is the sixth in his series of 7 books. It's an action thriller, basically.
Genre. So is it genre fiction then?
Fiction, yeah.
Genre. It's not literary. It's like, they have different genres, like crime genre, adventure. They have the as they call it, romances. What else? Science fiction is a genre. Is it? It sounds like it might be a genre series.
So the protagonist is basically a historian and an ex-military person. Mm-hmm. So he's running around the world finding clues, basically wants to save the world from extinction. So that's the main plot of the story.
Right. Okay. And who do you, so So who are you writing the review for?
Maybe people who love to read adventure stories.
Yeah, for sure. So it seems like we had this Abanov, was it Abanov? I can't remember. Someone had written a review. Yeah, Abanov, you wrote the review about Stephen King,
Uh,
right? So
Doctor
this,
Sleep, Doctor Sleep and Gone Girl.
right. I can't remember what it was, but no, well, you were particularly, the one we talked about in was the one that you wrote that was a sequel to The Shining. Remember that,
Correct,
right?
correct. That's the one.
Yeah. So to me, the discussion of this book, the discussion of this review, very similar to the discussion of that review. There's, I mean, when it comes down to it, there's not an infinite number of ways to really write a review. There are really just a few. We isolate who the audience is for the review. People who either we're basically saying this is a who may read this book, right? This is the group read this book. I am addressing them, and I'm going to tell them whether they should or shouldn't read the book. And this Abanov's review, basically you have maybe two classes of people in this case, because you're writing about a series, you're writing about people who are already fans of the series, and you're about people who might be new to the series. And then, wait, so yeah, I guess that's right. So you're talking, what do we have? We had fans, and then we had people who read already in the genre. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to explain three possibilities. Okay, so fans, people who already read in the genre, and then lastly, people who do not read in the genre. And I'm including that because we're going to decide something about three people. We're going to make a little tick list for ourselves. Fans,
Okay.
if you love the stories of Matthew Riley, you're going to love this. It's the same hero that we've grown to, right? Does that, or maybe a Mojave, maybe you're going to say, if you stories, you're disappointed by this one. You don't have name, blah, da, 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 right? You're going to make a decision, yay or nay for fans. You're going to make a decision, yay or nay for people who already read this genre. So if you are reading adventure stories and you read, for example, and then this might be a place where you might gather them, right? You're already reading this author, you're reading this author, you're reading this author. You're going to want to give this author a try, or you're going to prefer to read this person, right? So you're already reading adventure stories. You either do or you don't want to read this story. It's an up or a down. And the third group, you're not reading adventure stories. You're reading literature. You're reading history, right? This is a very interesting place to go, right? So let's say these people are reading else. Should they read this book or not read this book, right? If you're already reading, and now this is where you go, like, if you're interested in ancient history, you might really enjoy a character whose basis is that he's a historian and he's an archaeologist, right? So it allows you to enter into a world already fascinated with in a new way and with a dashing, protagonist as the central character, capable of doing all things that are sometimes completely unimaginable, right? So does that make a little sense?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
so identifying your audience, deciding what you're going to say to them is there, and we probably want to deal with all three of those. If you're only reading to, let's say, you know, like, and that could, you could just one of them, right? So let's say an Amazon review, you go, fans of Matthew Riley's books, you love this one, right? Or you could, you know, to your fans, if you haven't read Matthew Riley, you love this book, but start with the first one, right? Or you can say, or you can write to the third group. You can say, you have never read the book, read this one, right? You can select one of three if you want to and direct just to that audience, or write to all three of them.
Okay.
And if you write to all of them, of course, you're making a wider audience. You only have an audience, and so now you only have, say, 14 people. That's a joke. So you're only writing to fans. Now you're reading to adventure people, and you're writing, you know, 10,000. And now you're writing to people who read anything, 1 million people, you know, or maybe your audience is, you know, you love adventure movies. You should try this. Now you're writing to people who love adventure movies. You're talking about 20 people. So you're always seeing your audience, but you could do it. That's my big comment.
That's right. Yeah, we
I
should
think
target
that-
it a wider audience.
Well, just that you define for yourself who you're talking about and whether you're saying basically or no about it. That's what our review is finally doing. We are, like we just talked about, might talk about positives and negatives, but finally you do want to come down on one side or the other, because you're really making a recommendation to your reader, and your reader is going to follow your recommendation really based on how you make your recommendation. Like, the balance of your recommendation will determine whether they follow your recommendation. And in Greek, we call this ethos. This is the author's ethos. And we define ethos by how well we present our DV knows well and would speak to us about it. So good to see DV. Yeah, and so I think that this is great. I don't think you need to spend so much time summarizing the book. Because,
Okay.
in fact, I would suggest not summarizing the book very much. Maybe bring up, if there's a point to make. Last review, we were talking about, okay, some of these details about these personal lives are interesting, so maybe you want to include a couple of those details.
Okay.
But the larger summation of political issues is this, and so you might want to use some of those larger issues as examples. So you might want to provide examples for your argument, but you don't want to summarize the book. I would say, because of course, the joy of reading the book is discovering what's going to happen as it unfolds. So you don't want to give any of that away. I think that I'm going to guess a little though, that your audience, sort of that, remember we talked about fans, we talked about adventure readers, and then we talked about these other readers that wanted to read. And I have a feeling that that's a little bit where you're leaning. You're basically trying to draw people into reading about history in this adventure genre. And so you might think about that, making them more largely your audience rather than these first two, if you wanted to.
Because I guess they will anyways go
encourage
ahead and read the book. The fans would anyways go ahead and read the book, irrespective of whatever review I give.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, right. Abandon them. Why waste your time with and talk to the people that you want to. Who is it that you want to say you should read the book? Think about them and then design the review for them.
Okay. Oh, one other thing I wanted to ask you. Sorry, may I interrupt?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, this is the 6th book in series. So in the starting, I have given the titles of the other books. Is it necessary in a review to say that?
You can decide. So it's books in a series, and I think that it's probably nice that there are books in a series. Well, you have to make a decision. Is it better for someone to read all the books in the series so that they
It's basically a continuation of the same story,
but different arenas, right? So like different historical arenas.
Not really. The story goes on for 10 years or so. Like if you haven't read the previous books, the reader might feel lost in between because there are what do you say references to earlier escapades.
Okay, so then we're getting closer. If your audience are people who have not read this author, I think you should probably review to suggest that they read the series probably from the beginning, right? So that it's helping us be more focused. Right? You're not going to suggest people who have never read to with book number 6. You would want to basically say, you're interested in history and mythology. You might find a great access through the adventure novels of Matthew Riley, something like that. So once so you see how this sort of works together. This is probably the largest point I want to make, is that when we figure out who our audience is, we also figure out how we write, what we write. If we don't figure out our audience, we cannot figure out what we're supposed to write. And then what we do is we type. I've done a lot of typing in my life. Great. Is Mayor here?
Thank you.
I didn't see him as, is he there? Mayur. Nope, I don't think so. So if he's not there, Otis, I'd still like if you could share, because this is one of the few reviews that we have got, right? So if there's anything at in general terms based on this review that you want to share.
Okay. Yeah. So the hymns of Papa. So this review, what I'm being in this review, it brings up so many issues. It's really my issue with you is one of organization, but I have a little maybe caveat about that. So I would imagine that the book has a kind of organization based on the thesis, right? So going back to maybe the first review that we spoke, that basically a nonfiction book will have some kind of a thesis, but I'm not exactly clear what type of book this is. So that would be the first thing to determine and to get up front. Is it a work of nonfiction that is being a thesis? What is that thesis? Then, so a nonfiction book will basically contextualize, it will present a thesis, which is an argument of some kind. And my reduction of the thesis statement is, you think this, you're wrong, it's this, right? So that's basically what a statement is in the vaguest, most broad terms. It states that then it provides evidence to build towards that thesis, and then it concludes usually in a way a little bit ambiguous than they came out in the beginning. So that and that style is extremely effective, basically. It is a narrative, it is a narrative that builds the author's ethos. So beginning, what they do with the thesis statement is they basically go down the gauntlet of what their statement is and their thesis. Then they go about the difficult process of proving it. And when they get to the end of the difficult process of proving it, they, in a sense, capitulate to the antagonist's argument, right? Capitulate. They say, you know, this requires more stuff and more. So in the beginning, they're you know, certain, but then after grappling with the arguments back and forth, protagonist and antagonist side back and forth, they basically capitulate some to the antagonist argument, who is finally their author. That becomes the narrative flow of a driven argument, I feel.
I see.
If
Okay.
this is one, then we should have that, right? So you can look at the thesis, and then you can look at how it develops the argument. If it is not that, so like this is in fact, if it's a polemic, so a polemic, I think of a polemic as something that's basically one-sided. So it says something and then it just keeps saying it over and over again. So it's not really grappling with two sides of an argument. It's just one statement. If it's polemic, that's, you know, if I were writing a review about a polemic, I would write it differently. And then again, I'm not sure this is a narrative. You know, I'm clear exactly what it is. There are so many points that are brought up. Maybe there's, I'm going to say there's 5 or 6 points that are in this piece without a sensitization. But if it's driven, we'll have an organization, we'll have a thesis, and these points will be points on the way to proving the thesis. Does that make sense? And so I would like to see, I think it's a great start. I think that the ideas that are being presented here are really amazing. I can't organize too much is coming at me.
I see. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And I finally want to know about the organization. The reader is looking for is clarity. So this is, I'll go back to the first review. So like the suggestions I was making the first review basically says book, right? Here's a book and this is the title. And then it's giving clarity, right? It's giving us more about the book than it gives us. It's saying this is the thesis, right? This is the stuff that's good about it, these details. But the problems with it are biased. So now when I think about the book, I think about it with your clarity. I might have, if I were just reading the book. So I might read the book, be swayed by the bias, but I read the review, and I can actually read the book with greater clarity than I could have before. That's all what we want to bring here. So I think that the author here has done the work to isolate their ideas, but now the author has to do that further work of organizing it so that I understand the book with clarity. So if I decide to either read it or not read it, I have that advantage. And that, DV, how are you? It's too late for DV. Oh no, it's so great to see him. I did, gosh, I did a DV in it and several other people, and it was just, I still reference some of the works. You know, it's influenced my life I'll reference some of those works. Yeah, influence has changed the trajectory of life in terms of how I think about things. So anyway, DV, great to see you. Sorry we kept you up so late, but next week a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I'm not sure if his camera has frozen. I don't see the video moving.
It's all right. It's for you all, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate these reviews. I want to go. I'm your fan, so when we do the hard work. So writing is hard. Typing is easy. Typing is easy, but we want to, when we do hard work of writing and getting these reviews done, we also want to figure out then how to make them as effective as possible. It goes back to what we were talking about looking at those outlets, and
Right.
And you have, since you have such a group, you also have incredible ability to push things through social media. All of these things are valuable, and you know, thinking about your strategies or capitalizing on the hard and the content that you're doing and the thought work that you're doing is going to be a big part of the picture, you know.
Right. No, absolutely. And thank you, Otis, and thank you, everyone. Hopefully, we'll get more reviews and writing samples next week. I know there's one that Anvita sent, so that is one. I know I have to send something. You know, it's been a long time, and I need to send either a review or another writing piece. And one thing that I have struggled with from what I can make out is getting the point of view right. So I think I need to send some more pieces.
Right. So going just another word about that audience. So we can see that, like, when we define the audience, because when we're writing a review, right, we're writing from a sort of a narrative perspective. We're just a narrator. We're a human being. We're a character in the work. We are a omniscient. It helps us define who we are. Right? Like I say, like, if we don't know the audience, we can type anything, right? So I can just me, you know, dopey me, write this book or that book, The Trees Outside or whatever. But to the audience, people who are interested in maybe either reading or reading this book, defines exactly what I'm going to say in my review, which is basically, you should or shouldn't read this book. If we're gonna say you should read this book, I think it's great to say, and you should read this one. So that's another way to plug another book to do something else. Okay, not this book. Wow, that's a very cogent advice. This book is biased, but I should read this book instead. And you know, if you want an biased account of the India, you could read this excellent book.
Right.
And I find the tea and all that. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to just say, for all of you, I might have said this before, but I was going to put on my gravestone, write for 5 minutes a day. So that was going to be on my gravestone, but now it'll be avenge me. Please wake up. My style is I wake up first thing in the morning, and I'm going to tell you, I got 5 minutes a day. I full course in Stanford, writer's block, and it was headed by a sports psychologist of all. It was amazing. And the one little took away was 5 minutes a day. It did allow me to write 600-page failed novel. Amazing advice. Okay, I would not have been able to write a 6-page failed novel without it. Every day, just 5 minutes, naturally. And then you can say, I've been successful, I'm done. But if you want to keep writing and you can, go ahead. I will give you this advice too, though. Always stop writing, because life becomes untenable if we don't take care of the things. If we don't pay attention to the people we need to pay attention to, if we don't pay the bills we need to pay, then we're not going to be able to keep writing. So we have to have a balance. This is important. We do have to have a, because at the end of the day, the most important thing that we do is that we keep writing. So that's the final art.
Very true. So thank you, Otis.
All right.
And thank you, everyone. Next week, we'll begin half an hour earlier in India and half an hour later in the US. And I'll make the change to the Zoom webinar. So you should get a notification that this is updated, and we'll see you in 1 week from now.
And give me some work, please. I'm so enjoying it. So
Absolutely.
I'll just put in a plug. Otis has started a newsletter. I sent the link on like a WhatsApp group. Not everyone may be on it. So maybe Abhinav, I'll send it to you and you can circulate it with the next.
Yes.
The next reminder.
I have to. I absolutely have to. That on Substack. So yes, thanks for reminding me, Aditi.
oh, thanks, Aditi. Okay. Bye all. Have a great great night and great week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.